On the planet Sera, the golden emulsion liquid was found in geological formations beneath the planet's surface, known as the Hollow, an underground tunnel network that was the cradle of the Locust Horde civilization, as well as the home to all of the indigenous creatures that evolved within. But it later became known that emulsion was more than just a highly volatile, golden, liquid fuel source. It was actually a fungal organism and began to infect any living organism in sight, and this was known as Lambency. So as always, I'm your host Abz, and here is every Lambent creature in Gears of War lore. Lambency was where exposure to emulsion would lead to deadly mutations, robbing the host of their free will and transforming them into a semi-sentient killing machine with no other goal but to spread the infection. The size, shape and severity of the Lambent mutations varied based on the host and their environment. When a Lambent lifeform dies, they typically self-detonate in order to spread the Lambent infection. So firstly, there were the pure emulsion-based Lambent forms. So the most basic form of Lambency were known as Polyps. These were crab-like creatures that hunted in large packs. They tended to be released from Lambent hosts after they had been mutated or destroyed. Their goal was to spread the infection by spewing emulsion, but by also latching onto a potential host's back and possessing their bodies. And they were also capable of climbing walls and ceilings. The fruiting bodies of the emulsion were known as the Lambent Stalks. These were huge fungus-like structures that would spawn from the soil and ocean floor and emit emulsion vapors to spread the Lambency, similar to fungal spores. Now the Lambent Stalks came about after the sinking of Jacinto, flooding the hollow with seawater and therefore rising emulsion into the soil of Sera. Once a stalk emerged, it would produce Lambent pods on its structure, and these pods would release various different Lambent lifeforms. In terms of gameplay, the Lambent Stalks would act as a delivery system for the Lambent, similar to how the Locust emerged from the emergence holes. Now the indigenous creatures of the Hollow, unfortunately, became hosts of Lambency as well, although some of them being very rare or single cases. The most common, however, were the Lambent Wretches. They actually made up most of the bulk of the Lambent organisms, even reaching the millions during the Lambent War. This was because the Wretches were the most common Hollow creatures that were under the Locust Horde's command, and they were the first instances of Lambency seen by both the Locust Horde and the humans. On the other hand, one of the largest known Lambent organisms were the infected Lambent Brumak. This mutation was vastly different from any other Lambent lifeform. A Lambent Brumak would tend to grow several stories tall, with its head splitting open and a second one coming out of it, and with multiple huge tendrils coming out of its body. The Brumak turned into the most volatile, grotesque, and perhaps most dangerous Lambent ever encountered.
I don't know. Almost looks like it's going Lambent.
Lambent? Is it exploding Lambent?
Yeah, like the Wretches, but way bigger.
Then I think we've got our bomb.
And since the Lambent Wretches exploded, Delta realized that the Lambent Brumak would explode too, and so it was used to sink Jacinto and flood the hollows.
Marcus, whoa, that's one big, ugly motherfucker.
Cole, can you see this shit?
Baby, we got a grandstand view. We're crossing the bridge right above the ship.
Any way you can kill this thing from where you are?
Putting it scientifically? We need to blow his brains out of his ass.
Some of the Leviathan aquatic apex predators of the Hollow had turned Lambent as well. Now these were the largest known Lambent creatures ever encountered. The Lambent Leviathans were capable of launching Lambent Polyps, but extreme artillery in the form of tickers were used to destroy the Lambent Leviathan, but the explosions were known to be the most catastrophic. And then we had the members of the Locust Horde that had turned Lambent. The most common of the Lambent Locust were the Lambent Drones. They shared the same sort of behaviour as the Locust Drones in terms of weaponry capability and military tactics, but their appearance was similar as well, apart from the iconic Lambent look, or black charred skin with yellow bioluminescent boils. but the Lambent Drones would later evolve into the Lambent Drudges.
Whatever the hell that is, that's a new world record in ugly.
This was the next stage of the infestation, and the Lambent Drudges were one of the faces of the Lambent fighting force. Now these creatures lost all form of sentience, and gained the ability to morph their ligaments and heads, forcing their enemies to constantly change tactics. Before they mutated, Drudges posed as much threat as your standard Locust or Lambent Drone, but the Drudges were unique in their ability to spontaneously mutate during combat, making them deadly opponents. Mutations provided them with enhanced combat ability, providing extra firepower, range and hardiness. But Drudges only mutate when their health is sufficiently depleted, but not enough that it kills them outright. Drudges can perform several mutations simultaneously, but once mutated, Drudges cannot return to their pre-mutation state. Now the Lambent Drudges have 3 unique mutations. Number 1, extending their body height and turning into a leg stalk and releasing polyps from their torso. Number 2, growing arm tentacles that fired emulsion. And number 3, a head snake that spit fire. There were some of the Locust shock troopers, known as the Locust Grenadiers, who had turned Lambent as well, alongside some of the Locust's elite, the Theron Guard, who saw some of their brethren turn Lambent as well. But not much is known as of now about the Lambent Grenadiers and the Lambent Therons. The Lambent Boomers, better known as Lambent Gunkers, were infected Locust Boomers, more specifically Locust Butchers. This is because the Butchers equipped the Butcher Cleaver, and the Gunker had their right arms mutated to envelop the Butcher Cleaver, and this became a deadly long-range attack despite being a melee attack, while their left arm mutated into a spoon-like claw, which poured and hurled balls of emulsion from afar. Gunkers were large and powerful, coming in at 10 feet tall on average, and they were much more deadlier than the Locust Boomers, or Butchers for that matter. But one of the most deadliest Lambent was the Lambent Berserker, who maintained the speed, strength, and aggression of the Locust Berserkers, but they were even deadlier, as they were able to jump to great heights and distances, and they were also able to expel emulsion fumes as well. The Lambent Berserkers also had bladed tentacles, and were even slightly larger compared to the Locust Berserkers. Now the only way to kill a Lambent Berserker was to attack its exposed chest cavity, which was protected by its ribcage. And there were 2 ways to expose the cavity. The most common way was when the Berserker prompted an attack, whether it be charging or leaping in the air, and the other way was to use incendiary weapons on the Berserker. While it would not flinch them, their ribcage would automatically open, exposing the chest cavity. But the Lambent Berserker was so deadly that it shrugged off a Hammer of Dawnstrike, and this was not the case with the Locust Berserkers. So the Lambent Berserker was a force to be reckoned with. Now humans who were constantly exposed to emulsion turned Lambent, and they became known as Formers. During the Lambent pandemic in 15 AE, cities that had major emulsion refineries like Mercy, Char and Halvor Bay were the first cities to have their citizens turn Lambent. The Lambent humans typically swarmed in large numbers and had increased speed, agility and strength. But upon death, the Lambent humans did not explode, but instead slightly combusted into a cloud of emulsion fumes. As well as Formers, during the Lambent pandemic, several animals on the surface and in the Serrano Ocean came into contact with high amounts of emulsion, and they as well turned Lambent. Known examples were Lambent dogs, Lambent cats, Lambent eels, and Lambent bulls. So that, my friends, is every Lambent creature in Gears of War lore. Drop a like if you enjoyed this lore video, subscribe for more similar content like this, and I'll leave a link at the top right of the screen if you want to watch my other lore videos as well. I'm your host Abz, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.